you were a child of the 60s, a baby boomer, then Tommy Kirk was a big part of your life. He was in a tremendous number of big hit Disney films. He's going to say what I'm about to say again, but you have to remember when you hear his story. The 1960s were not some swinging time as you so often see in these documentaries. We were a conservative country in the 60s, especially in matters of homosexuality, gay issues. It was swept under the carpet, especially, my God, in the world of Walt Disney. He was an arch conservative. He didn't have any of this stuff tinge any of his films or Disneyland. He actually had people at guards at Disneyland, I remember, up until the 70s that kept out people with guys with long hair. The 60s were a conservative time. So with that in mind, this is what Tommy Kirk has to say. I knew I was gay, but I had no outlet for my feelings. I considered my teenage years to be desperately unhappy. It was hard to meet people, and at that time there was no place to go and socialize. It wasn't until early 60s that I began to hear of places where gays congregated. Bear in mind, he would have been born in the late 40s, early 50s. The lifestyle was not recognized, but I was very, very lonely. Oh, I had some brief, very passionate encounters, and as a teenager I had some affairs, but they were always stolen, back alley kind of things. They were desperate and they were miserable. When I was 17 or 18, I finally admitted to myself I wasn't going to change and that it was going to have consequences. I that would wreck my Disney career, maybe my whole acting career. It was all going to come to an end, and I knew that. While filming The Misadventures of Merlin Jones in 1964, I saw that film. Kirk started seeing a 15-year-old boy that he had met in a swimming pool, public swimming pool in Burbank, California. Tommy was 22. Again, the boy was 15. The boy's mother found out, and she reported the affair to Disney Studios. He says, Tommy says, the boy's mother went to Walt, and I was quickly fired. He's really lucky he didn't go to jail, but I guess, the industry takes care of its own. Disney didn't renew his contract, and he says, even more than MGM, Disney was the most conservative studio in town. The studio executives were beginning to suspect my homosexuality. Certain people were growing less and less friendly. In 1963, Disney let me go, but Walt asked me to return for the final version of a Merlin Jones movie, The Monkey's Uncle, because the Jones films had been moneymakers for the studio. The film earned $4 million in rentals in North America. It was an astounding number at that time for a film. Tommy made a few more films outside Disney, but on Christmas Eve 1964, he was arrested for suspicion of marijuana, a big crime at the time, especially for a movie star. It made the headlines. America didn't differentiate between marijuana and hard dope. America was all the same thing. The DA dropped the grass charges since the officer also found barbiturates in what was probably an illegal search and seizure, by the way. And he was charged with possession of illegal drugs, which wasn't true. The actor produced proof that the drugs had been prescribed by a physician to him, but it really didn't matter. Again, we were conservative people, actor who played for kids with drugs, that's all the world wanted to hear. He bounced back in his career a little bit. He made several films. He, but he then fell into drug addiction. He gave up acting in the 1970s. He said, I was drinking, taking pills, smoking grass. In fact, I was pretty wild. I came into a whole lot of money, but I threw a lot of parties and spent it all. I wound up completely broke. I had no self-discipline. I almost died of a drug overdose a couple of times. It's a miracle I'm still around, and all that didn't help the situation. Nobody would touch me. I was considered box office poison. The days when he earned $1,000 a week, which was a huge amount of money in the early '60s, that'd be like $7,000 today a week. Uh, those days are over. So to get work, he worked as a waiter or chauffeur, and mostly as a carpet cleaner in the San Fernando Valley. Uh, he said, I made a lot of money and I spent it all. No bitterness, no regrets. I did what I did. I wasn't the boy next door anymore. I could pretend to be for a few hours in a day in front of a camera, but I couldn't live it. I'm human. I'm not Francis of Assisi. I don't blame anybody but myself for my drug abuse, for my career going haywire. I was not ashamed of being gay, never have been, and never will be. For that, I make no apologies. I have no animosity toward anybody because the truth is, I wrecked my own career. So you got to give him points for that. He's a stand-up guy in that regard. He tried to do something. He retired. He had a pension and he lived off that. He died at age 79 in 2021.